week. I gotta work on my dangles a little bit. If you're a goalie, 10 to go, so to speak. Yes, that's a good idea. Now, he did have a 48 save game this week, and he did have that ridiculous save against Lowry, so we'll call it even. And when you've got help like this, I mean, does it even really matter? Check out this great back check from Highmore before batting a puck out of mid-air to stop a sure goal. I don't even know how he got a stick on this. Wow. And we saw a lot of great defensive plays this week, as here it was Hall against Velarde getting a leg down for a beauty, the Brinket defending the empty net to shut down Stutzla, Sergachev in Utah backstopping Vamilka as the Vesna may just go to a player this year. Slavkovsky with a wide open net shut down by Forsling. But believe it or not, we did see goals being scored this week, as that right there is a little NHL history. The fastest goal to start an overtime ever at just 4 seconds. Montour caught Hudson napping, and he made him pay. Before a drop, so I'm already out of the race because he's got a head start. Hope he isn't cheating that hard to roll the dice. I'll get play by him, I guess. That is one salty rookie. Suzuki against Vancouver had a beauty to start that game. Just a minute into the first, draws Lankin to his left and beats him on the right. Similarly, also against Vancouver, it was Kadri also against Lankin. Kadri faking a shot, fakes the backhand, and Lankin attempting to poke his beat on his right again. Marner in the shootout against Utah was real smooth with it. He's got dangles for days, hypnotizing Vamilka to sleep as he wins it for the Leafs in the shootout. And 2 games later, this time it's Marino smooth with it for Utah. Nice little drag before feeding Stenlin for the easy tap in. But we had some quirky ones as well. We saw Drew Doughty score maybe the longest goal of the year, high along the boards, as with the empty net, it was just how he drew it up dead center. In Vancouver, it was Pedersen dangling shot, and was that not in? Sure, looked like it, but regardless, for good measure would score another. But yes, that Pedersen shot was indeed a goal. Back to Calgary, it was Huberdeau, and
Lever,
what
not
happened?
lever.
Goal. You better believe it. And back to that Montreal-Seattle game, this one I just loved Slavkovsky's reaction, as yes, it got up there, but it was deemed a good goal.
I was 100% sure that was the highest stick I ever had.
So we can roll up our sleevers.
Scored a beauty against Dallas, and his former teammate Rantanen to win it in overtime, marking his 25th of the season.
Sleeves, not
guys like Austin
slabs.
Matthews, Sidney Crosby, and Connor
We're gonna be
McDavid.
here
That
for
is impressive
Eve.
stuff. But I think that's about where I'm going to leave it this week. Thank you guys as always for watching. I truly appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.
Oh.
50 goals in 39 games. We just watched history here. I'll tell you, I don't know anybody ever going to break that.
At just 10 years of age, Wayne Gretzky was already dubbed the Great One. And after an absolutely stunning NHL career, setting just about every NHL record you could think of, I'd say that was about right. And that title will not fade. For perspective, he scored 92 goals in the 81-82 season, had 163 assists in 85-86. He once had a 51-game point streak, and of course, scored those 50 goals in 39 games. Just ridiculous. And all that means, when you look at the most points ever scored in a single season, Gretzky is first and second, third and fourth on that list, and he holds 8 of the top 10 seasons ever. Yeah, his legacy is cemented. But there are 2 records looking like they are about to be shattered. It's not a question of if he's going to break the record, it's a question of when is he going to break the record. We've obviously all seen the historic season Alexander Ovechkin, the Great 8, is having. He is on the cusp of breaking one of the greatest records there is, Wayne Gretzky's all-time record at 894. This is a story that deservedly so has captured a lot of media. But there is another story that I don't think...
Try and get up to 100. Try, not 100. Try and get up to 900 Ovechkin. I really want a good round number. It either has to be a factor of 5, a factor of 10, or an even number. Like a 2.
For me, performance anxiety is something I've dealt with personally. Striving for success and perfection, wanting to perform at a high level and live up to expectations, while also facing feelings of doubt, insecurity.
No odd number. I don't really know my prime number, so I can't really say anything referring to. Hey! Piss off. No sponsor. You know, I really hate sponsors. Just rewind to that part earlier in the video when I got 2 sponsors and I put one of them in the description. That really shows it. Really. No, I just hate when they do it during a video. Holy crap.
At 37 years of age, we just saw him lead Team Canada as the nation's captain to win gold at the Florida Faceoff. He recorded a multi-goal game in Vegas earlier this month to become the only player in NHL history to have a multi-goal game against 31 different NHL franchises. He's missing just the
animatronic named Freddy.
He scored his 1,670th point to officially pass none other than Wayne Gretzky for 4th most points all time with a single franchise. But yet, the most impressive part of this season is that he is once again a point per game player for the 20th time. And if we go all the way back to his first goal, back on October 10th of 2005, slap me, silly. A season in which he scored 102 points in 81 games, as he still
slap me, say.
From that inaugural season to the following year, where he scored 120 points in 79 games. Through his next 3 seasons after that, same deal, all well over a point per game. Then came the 2010-2011 season, where on a 25-game point streak, while at his absolute peak, this season was cut short with a hit that threatened the rest of his playing days as a whole. Now, luckily, of course, that wasn't the case, and 13 seasons at a point per game or higher between then and last season gets us to his 19th season, where at the age of 36, he finished the year with 94 points in 82 games. Still, well over a point per game, as he became just the second player in NHL history to record 19 consecutive point per game seasons alongside only Wayne Gretzky, which finally gets us to today, where through 68 games, he has 74 points, and with having missed 2 games prior to that Four Nations break, assuming he plays 80 games, he now needs just 6 points in the final 12 games to secure what will be his 20th consecutive point per game season. This would surpass Gretzky's 19-year run from 1979 to 1998, as he would become the only player in NHL history to achieve it. And while Gretzky played the bulk of his days in the highest scoring era in NHL history, Crosby, on the other hand, has spent a good chunk of his career in one of the lowest.
We need Sidney Crosby and Alex frickin' Ovechkin to beat Wayne Gretzky in certain records, because Wayne Gretzky's had control of the NHL's record book, the National Hockey League's record book, for way too long now. Ever since, like, the late 70s, 80s, and ever since the 90s, you know? Unlike, when Mario Lemieux came back in 2005 and said, hey, let's do this stuff. Ooh, I want to watch that video later.
But after all of the years that these two have been linked to each other, the rivalry that has grown into admiration.
Who thinks on the win the heart? You. Same question. Who will win the heart? Sidney Crosby. First couple years, we kind of was in a relationship. He was young, but now we're mature. It's amazing what he's doing. It'll be amazing when it happens.
It is quite poetic that they are both set to break a major Gretzky record in the same season.
Even get paid to do something I love to do. I mean, can't even imagine how amazing that would be.
That's about it for this one, guys. Thank you for watching. As always, I appreciate it very much. I'll see you in the next one. Have you ever seen a guy take a penalty and end up being credited with a goal in the same sequence? Well, last night we did. And would it happen against anyone but Buffalo? See, it's been another tough year for the Sabres.
Sabres are losing. Blazers. Whoa, whoa.
That came
It's
during what was a
magic.
13-game losing streak that went
And
from
yes,
Thanksgiving
that's
through
original.
Christmas, at a
That's
time where the
1970s.
Sabres had more losses during that streak than they had the entire season. Players like Jack Quinn, Dylan Cousins, they weren't at their best. And yet, Cousins goes to Ottawa at the trade deadline, and he immediately lights it up
We're
for the
at the
Senators.
trade
4
deadline.
points in his first 5 games, and now he
Mm.
actually has 6 through 7 total. But forgetting all of that, in last night's matchup in Utah, in what was a very back-and-forth game, they were right in this thing with 6 to go. And yet, it completely fell apart in the third.
You gotta be kidding me!
So let's quickly recap how we got there, though. They turn it over late in the first, point blank, 2-on-1, and Utah opened the scoring. Reimer with no chance, but all right, it's still early. And drawing a penalty shortly after, they go right to work. Zucker for Peterka, and answering right back with just 11 seconds remaining, we had ourselves a tied hockey game through 20. Then to start the second, right back to work as they would score again. Just 11 seconds in, they take their first lead of the game, and not so fast. Melenstein making contact at the top of the crease with Vemelka. Utah challenges it, and while the league took forever to take a look at this, of course, it was taken back. So despite the strong start, Utah was noticeably better in the second, in my opinion, and would take back the lead in the middle frame with Sergachev through traffic, netting his 12th of the year. But to make matters worse, with just 5 seconds remaining, Utah would get a power play right off the face-off as Krebs playing the puck with his glove, and it's a delay of game, which carried over to the third. But yet, it was actually Buffalo's
Utah
McLeod
Hockey
in
Club
alone,
win the
and he'd
Stanley
score
Cup. That'd be the
shorthanded
comeback
just
of the
90
century.
seconds in. And guess
I
what?
just hope
We're
they
tied
make
up
the
again.
playoffs, you
So
know?
yeah, through
I hope the
54
Pittsburgh
minutes of
Penguins
play,
make the playoffs.
they're in
They
good
got
shape.
screwed
And
over
then
last
there
season.
it goes. Reimer would lose it, Dahlin whiffs it, and Utah regains the lead for the third time, again in what was a very back and forth game. But Buffalo was still very much in this thing. Just need one to push OT, and they did push. Here with under 2 to go now, Reimer pulled, and then it's just what the doctor ordered. Stenlin called for a high stick, meant all they had to do was
Give him the puck! Give him the puck! Give him the puck!
Give them the
Because
puck!
they put the puck on net here, or hell, just give it to them. This 6-on-5 turns into a 6-on-4, and who knows? But instead,
Sabres throw it away, and this is going to maybe... Oh my goodness, it's in! You gotta be
It's
kidding me!
in!
wish I was,
Woo!
but welcome to Buffalo Sabres hockey. How often do you see the guy that took the penalty end up being credited with a goal in the same sequence? He was the last to touch the puck here before taking that high sticking penalty, and yeah, it's his goal. You just can't even make it up.
Give him the puck!
You know, when Ray gets this fired up about it, it's bad. But a tight 3-2 game had now turned to 4-2, and then Sergachev from deep would hit Dahlin as it still went in to make it 5-2, twisting the dagger. And I mean, who knows? It may have ended up this way anyway, but another brutal game in what has been a pathetic nightmare of a season in Buffalo. That's about it for this one, though. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it very much, and I'll see you in the next one.
The old trusty iron center contact. Let's take a close.
Verizon and AT&T announced price hikes a total of 10 times in the past 2 years. Families can switch to T-Mobile and get all the benefits of their plans while saving 20%. T-Mobile blows the competition away.
Kovacevic just mentioned to us that he thinks the team kind of needs to have that playoff mentality going down the stretch here. Is that something
Kovacevic just needs to play better. That would help.
Sheldon
You're so
Keefe, the
pretty,
same
but
guy who,
I'm pretty
after he simply said his elite players weren't elite, still decided to immediately walk back that soft-ass criticism. That same guy is now out here tossing his own player under the bus? I'll admit, this all seemed odd. Why single out Kovacevic? Well, he did take a careless delay of game penalty in the first period of this game, sailing one over the boards, but the Devils killed that one off with just a shot on net, and this was a 0-0 game through 20 minutes. The middle frame, where they have normally been good, was a disaster though. Got down to a 2-goal deficit after a terrible start to the period, and while Nico Hischier on the power play would get them to within just a goal, getting some momentum going, and Nason took an offensive zone penalty 30 seconds later, giving Ottawa a power play where they would capitalize to make it 3-1. And while Halla scored a very late game goal in the third, a period where they outshot them 16-4, it was too little, too late, as they lose a game in which they never even led. So again, why Kovacevic? On paper, analytically at least, he was their second best player of the night. Well, I'll get to some of his play as of late, which had to have contributed to this for sure, but first, I think Keefe was set up a bit. This is what Kovacevic said.
We're in a fight, and hopefully that gets us in that playoff mentality, 10, 11 games out, and we carry that into playoffs. So,
in my opinion, a pretty cliche answer. Obviously, we need to be better. You know how that goes. But the reporter asking an already frustrated Keefe, I don't think framed the question accurately.
Kovacevic just mentioned to us that he thinks the team kind of needs to have that playoff mentality.
Kind of twisting his words there, no? He was clearly not happy to begin with, and I think Kovacevic was just the guy brought up who ended up catching a butt end of the stick here. If Keefe had heard what he actually said, I don't think he gets this upset.
Kovacevic just needs to play better. That would help.
But I do think there was also some built-up resentment. They just signed Kovacevic $20 million on a 5-year deal, and this comment came out pretty short. So let's take a look. Again, he did have that penalty in this game, as I mentioned, not great, and just the game prior, he was directly at fault on this one. He panics, coughs the puck up, and that right there was the game winner in a game they should have won. Then in their game against Dallas, same deal. With just a minute left in the second, he also airmailed one there at a brutal time. After which, Luke Hughes also took one on that penalty kill, and these penalties directly led to the Stars scoring late in the period. And yet, it was a tied game late in the game, where Kovacevic iced the puck. And this was an unfortunate play. But nonetheless, it was deemed icing, and it was that icing that would directly lead to the Stars winning this game with just seconds remaining in the third. So yeah, after he inked that big deal, it's not ideal that he's now making these mental errors. However, and while I'm not a huge advanced stats guy, on paper, not only did he have a solid game against Ottawa, he's actually been pretty good overall. Him and Pesce are the only players with a goals for percentage at 50 or higher, and also he has their highest expected goals for percentage, meaning he is generating good scoring chances. I think the bigger problem here is that this team as a whole is a shell of themselves. Despite a real solid start from the Devils this season, things have turned with the loss of Jack Hughes. That certainly didn't help. Also missing Dougie Hamilton, and with no Siegenthaler, it's tough. Down to 5 D-men, fatigue has to be setting in, and we see it with plays like this. The bottom 6 is also not strong enough, and every game just feels like a struggle. So when you're just fighting to be good, talking about playoff hockey is maybe a piss off. Let's focus on not being ass first. I think that's all Keefe was getting at here. But all that said, they do have 9 wins in their last 20 games, and they're very likely still making playoffs. Obviously, you don't want to limp into them the way they kind of are, but I think this whole situation is overblown. Keefe definitely threw his guy under the bus. A bit odd to single him out the way he did, but in context, I don't think it's a big deal. He'll probably come out and walk this back anyway. But yeah, I don't know. You guys let me know your thoughts down below. As always, thank you for watching. I appreciate it very much, and I'll see you in the next one.
There's a lot of people like Puffy in the music business. Exposing Puffy means exposing them.
She's been drunk emailing a lot.
Oh, poor thing.
Billy,
My, oh my. We are 1 month removed from playoff hockey, and could you tell? We'll give it away. The Leafs giving up 5 unanswered to the third worst team in the league.
Really?
But what a
Okay.
week it was. We had
Hey,
the Reds
remember
jumping
when you
through
had
the
your
fish out of
grandmother
water
ship
as
us
just an
a
odd week
certain
for the officials all
Appalachian
around. Really,
hex
we had
poppet?
there were cup checks, cups on the ice, soccer, hockey, hybrids, some unbelievable goals this week. I mean, seriously, mid-air tic-tac-toe, what? We had huge hits, emotions running hot, even amongst teammates, a freaking goalie fight. Well, we'll talk about it. Some awesome sound bites.
That's 07 needs to play better. That would help. Give him the puck. Give him the puck. Give him the puck.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Mr. Quadzilla, and what a frame he's got on.
I looked up his mustache there. I was supposed to feel it. So big sexy losing it right there. He wasn't always open, but
And much more, so let's get to it. For the notables, we'll start with a big rig Patrick Maroon.
sometimes you gotta give up everything you know and everything you dreamed of your whole life.
Formally announcing his retirement in St. Louis, his hometown, where he got his 96th bout in that game, got a standing O from a crowd he won a cup for, and yeah, 14 seasons in the league, well over 800 games. He'll always be known as a 3-time, 3 straight Stanley Cup champ.
I'd like to St. Louis Blues organization for really making this night really special for me and my family.
Moving on, we saw Crosby net his 24th of the year, scoring his 1,670th point against the Islanders to officially pass Wayne Gretzky for 4th most points all time with a single franchise. And Sid's been on a tear. Most points in the league since the Four Nations break. This one was just nasty. Leads the league in 5-on-5 points for the whole season and is now just 2 points shy of breaking Gretzky's 19 consecutive point-per-game seasons record, all at 37. Pretty damn impressive. But you can't speak of records without bringing up the great Nate. He, of course, scored 88 against Philly this week, just 7 away from breaking the all-time goals record now. And how insane is it to see these two gray-haired goats doing this all around the same time? As with this goal, Ovi recorded his 15th 35-goal season. That is the most ever. And here is Nicholas Backstrom's biggest takeaway.
Biggest takeaway was probably explaining to him that he wasn't always open, but
And lastly, with the Sharks becoming the first team officially eliminated from the playoffs last week, it was the Capitals who became the first team to clinch a playoff spot this week. But with all that out of the way, let's get to the nasty. And as has been the case lately, it was nasty.
big sexy losing it right there. That's some frustration.
That came in Nashville after McCarron laid a huge hit on Buchnevich. Only problem, he never touched the puck. Called a major for interference, and yeah, I guess he didn't agree. But nonetheless, Tucker would then catch Evangelista later in this one. Almost a worse hit in my opinion, but this only got 2 minutes, which set the stage for their second meeting of the week. And shocker, it was a feisty one. Not 9 minutes in, we had Walker and LaRue drop him. Marchessault then got hit by Toropchenko late in the period. Didn't like it, so he immediately makes a beeline for Broberg, drilled him, and yeah, everyone came together. But finally, Blankenberg, Clip, and Thomas at center ice saw Kessel and Bolduc pair up for the 1-2 cross-check, a third for good measure. As good night, he got absolutely mauled. That cross-check, though, got Bolduc a misconduct and a max fine, as this game saw 3 game misconducts. It was a good old time. Over in Winnipeg, we saw Clifton absolutely nail Nino Niederreiter. Oof, that one had to hurt. And this was insane. Josh Anderson had Shane Pinto's skate go right into his Achilles, as that could have been so bad. But
First time in his career that Josh Anderson wore cut-resistant socks.
what are the odds? But speaking of injuries, we saw Jarvis go hard into the boards in LA, looked real rough as he's day-to-day, and then some big names out right now. Draisaitl, McDavid, both not expected to play for at least another week. Ederson in Vancouver also out. And then this one last night was just a bad one. Lilleberg giving Hurdle a little extra as he went hard into the boards. He's still being evaluated, but did not look good. And Cassidy did not like it at all, calling that hit senseless. But let's get back to the hits. Murphy in Chicago touched the puck just so he could sit down Isamon. I love it. We saw Rempe keeping the Trouba elbow alive for New York. Nasty, and no one is safe when he's around. Linesman gets secondhand benched over here. But even at practice, we saw guys going at it this week. Bezzetta and Jack nearly get into a dust-up as they were barking at each other.
I looked up his mustache there. I was supposed to feel it. So we started going at it all. I got there tonight.
Teammates, you say? This was brutal. Abby Murphy with a ridiculous hit on Caroline Harvey. Puck nowhere in sight as Harvey then later in the game got revenge on Murphy. And yeah, Team USA teammates right there. But the big one this week was the goalies going at it. Kings, Bruins, and we saw things boil over a bit. Peak hitting Turcotte, then Kusnedinov with a little shove here. Peak and Janot came together, and finally, after Kusnedinov was shoved into Kemper, it set things off. Kemper ripping his bucket off. He's like, what the heck, dude? Swayman, though, I have a goalie stick. Here's an invitation to pick on someone your own size. Kemper RSVPs, and oh my, gear comes off, and the freaking Zebras said no. Why?
You might know hard.
Tell me why.
What you might
Ain't
not know is
nothing
performance
but
and
a
We were so
heartache.
close, but yet so far.
Tell me why.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Oh, that's kind of awkward. But to finish things off, Kiefer Sherwood broke the NHL season record for hits with 384, and that right there was it. A little underwhelming, but it did score, and he is officially the new leader. But with that, let's get through some quick ones, and I think you're going to want to get through this quick. Yes, that is a Congress anthem in Nashville.
Once we recovered from that, we were back to our game, which is good.
Then, an odd week for the officials. The linesman in Montreal calling icing here, despite it being Montreal who fired it into their own zone. It was them. In Ottawa, this one was great. Also, the linesman this time getting tripped up by Highmore, but he points at his man, and he's got a job to do, folks. That's icing. Even chirping while he's down. Good stuff. But not so good was this ridiculous sequence in Toronto on the PK. Benoit clearing it, and Kelly Sutherland toe-picking dove right into the puck as you can't even make it up. It was on the change, and so Lorentz ends up getting to it first, and he scores. What's worse, this was a game winner. What's even worse, this wasn't the first time it happened to the Avs, as against Dallas. Similar deal. Hits the ref, Dallas pounces, hints for Robertson, and they scored. Yikes. Apparently, nowhere to go for the officials this week, as in Dallas. Sorelli caught the ref in the nether regions, and he's a good guy checking in on him. But speaking of the nether regions, Miller got a cup check from Ball, no pun intended, and in the OHL, there was a cup on the ice. Have you ever seen this? The linesman had to go grab it with a towel and deliver it. Now, you may have seen Fabian Setterlund deadlift 600 pounds, but with Brady asked about it, I thought this was pretty fun. Mr. Quadzilla, and what a frame he's got on. We also found out this week that Simone Benoit travels with his own espresso machine. What dedication. Speaking of dedication, this was 20 years ago. These boys supporting Ovechkin, and this week, they were back. Then in St. Louis, this was crazy. Nathan Walker going at it with Vlasic, casually spitting out his tooth. He drops it off at the bench and comes right back out. And here's, oh, that's a little awkward. Ron is now month to month simply from watching this clip. Respect. Wonder if he he happened to catch this game by chance. Maybe he learned a thing or two. Anyway, here's Sid and Gino, and many don't know this. They are actual shape-shifting penguins. So the more you know. This week we seem to get a soccer-hockey hybrid, Corpusalo booting the puck, then Marner heading the puck as the two just went soccer style out there. And speaking of trying another sport, the Sabres in Utah took a lap on an Olympic oval, which they may want to stick to because hockey doesn't appear to be working out. Down a goal, the goalie pulled, they got what they needed, a penalty, and all they had to do was... Give him the puck! Yeah, had they done so, this 6-on-5 would have become a 6-on-4, and instead, they passed it back off the boards and it went into their own net. It is not often you see a guy take a penalty, be the last to touch it, and end up being credited with a goal on the same sequence. But welcome to Sabres hockey, and while we're here, let me introduce you to the Maple Leafs defense. Sorry, I can't... here it is. It's the Leafs up 2 against Nashville, who with the third worst record in the league, came back and scored 5 unanswered against Toronto, as again, you just know the playoffs are around the corner. Then let's do a welcome to Devils hockey, where Kovacevic, who has had a few blunders as of late, the lay of game penalties especially, found himself thrown under a bus by his own coach.
Kovacevic just mentioned to us that he thinks the team kind of needs to have that playoff mentality. Kovacevic needs to play better. That would help.
And lastly, let me welcome you into my nightmares. Absolutely terrifying. On the topic of mascots, Will Smith and San Jose just about killed Sharky this week.
Tell me
I think he
why.
got knocked into an alternate universe where the goalie does the Brazilian Kuznetsov doesn't do the crawling penalty shot. What world is this? I actually love this. And so with that, let's get to the again. Worst case, as we already saw, but during a Rangers practice, Igor getting one low was not happy, and he wasn't happy all week. Chirping with Anderson from Calgary, you're not worth it. Before straight up tackling Sherwood playing against the Canucks. Dude is wound tight these days. Headed overseas to the Swedish Hockey League, we saw Moodo's Eriksson X say, you can't change here. I don't think so. But beyond the feistiness, we did see some great stops as well. Nedeljkovic on Kunin with a beauty, spinning and getting the blocker down. Wow. I also just love this overhead shot. Then to Smith against Tampa, Beat said, I'm just going to kick it, as he had that left pad working overtime. Some great stops. And also working overtime was Pickard from the bench, flashing some leather, says, I'm not even playing, boys. Gustafsson in Minnesota completely bailed out by John Merrill, saving a surefire goal about as close as it gets. Just kidding. This was as close as it gets. Stars, Flyers, and Sam Ersson stopping Duchesne gets just a piece of it with the pad, bailed out by Andre, and I mean literal millimeters, as this was deemed no goal. Insane. In overtime, though, are we doing this again? Stay in your net! Oh my goodness, Ellie, what a stop. Just getting there in time. Okay.
Stay in your goddamn net.
He's playing well overall. But with that, let's round things out with the goals of the week, starting with one of the craziest goals I have ever seen. The Blues with an in-the-air tic-tac-toe, and have you ever seen anything like it? Wow. In San Jose, this was a strange one. Short-handed Eklund was tripped up, went into the net with the puck, and it was deemed a goal. What? They took a look at it, and indeed, there was continuation of the puck towards the net, and this one stood. Over in the PWHL, we got our first ever Michigan in the league. Abby Rock making some history. Nice. And sticking with the ladies, back to the Frozen Four championship game. Wisconsin pushing late would come so close, but Wheeler covering the puck with her hand meant we got a penalty shot. All right, who wants it? Right here, coach. Kirsten Sims throws up her hands, and she shows her hands like butter to the forehand and ties the game with 19 seconds on the clock. So clutch. I kind of feel like the puck went backwards here, but I don't know. Beautiful goal anyway. And in Calgary, Anderson wide open would score, as it's the return of the stare down. We had McDavid against Utah just. Wow, that is another kind of special. Scores with just 4 seconds on the clock, but check out the touch from Bouchard to set this up. It's a set play, and it is tasty. As was this one in Vancouver. Sherwood with a nice touch to set up Omen backdoor. Pretty stuff. Lane Hudson in Montreal gave us a snipe show, walks it down the wall, rips it post, and in electric stuff. Then in Pittsburgh, this was a classic. Sidney Crosby redirect for his 25th of the year. So nice. In St. Louis, it was Bolduc shot on net, and it's Quinn Hughes. Pretty redirect. Wait, that's on his own net. Or off. All right, in New York, he was breaking ankles, okay? Slinging pucks, and we had Joshua finishing it off. And lastly, to tie things up, this was just an awesome story this week. Brendan Gallagher lost his mother to brain cancer earlier this month, and we saw him score this goal days later, where he tapped his chest. But this week, Twitter user Lucy Lou 08 shared this online, saying she felt the Hockey Fights cancer jersey she had received back in 2022 belonged to Brendan. He responded, proposing a jersey swap during their last home game of the season as just a great make you believe in humanity for a moment type of story. But yeah, as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it very much, and I'll see you in the next one.
Mama, take me home, country road. I might not sing too much of that song in this video, might get copyright claimed. What was that? Not to lose a coaching job in the NHL. I've always wondered how to do that.
I live stream on
You found something that you can do.
I've always wondered how to do
Philadelphia Flyers,
that.
with just 9 games remaining on the season, have fired their coach, John Tortorella. The Flyers have won just once in their last 12 games, and after a 7-2 loss on Tuesday night, where, it wasn't pretty, they lost their 6th straight, giving up a total of 14 goals in the last 2 games of that stretch alone. But after this game, Force gave a wild interview.
I'm not really interested in learning how to coach this type. I think this is the type of season we're at right now, but I have to do a great job.
Apparently, that right there is how you lose a job as a head coach in the NHL. Now, he took full responsibility, saying this was on him.
This falls on me to get the team prepared to play the proper way until we get to the end.
But at the same time, saying you're not interested in learning how to coach this team is an interesting quote. I kind of thought maybe he was saying he's just not interested in playing losing hockey, and we have to figure out a way not to do that, which, fairly routine stuff, and maybe it just came out wrong. But maybe I was wrong, and he really just isn't interested in coaching a team through a rebuild, which would be odd because he knew what this was. He said it himself.
This team needs to be built. I love the opportunity that we have here to build something from really the ground up. Just stay with it. No matter how much pain you're going through, stay with it.
When he was brought on back in 2022, I think Torts knew exactly what he was here for, but if he really just doesn't want to lead a team through this anymore, then yeah, this is obviously a fireable offense. But yeah, relieved of his duties not 3 full seasons into being the Flyers head coach, during which we've had some pretty amazing moments of him behind the bench. There was that time he refused to leave after being ejected. I'm not going, he can go. I'm not going, staying right in here. But his hard-nosed, questionable decisions have been there for a while. Last season, he sent shockwaves when he scratched and benched their captain, Sean Couturier.
Frustrated the way I've been treated around, I guess, but lately, is what it is.
Which that one was pretty brutal. He's also benched Michkov more than once, as the two actually went at each other not so long ago on the bench. And Michkov earlier in the season was also a healthy scratch for 2 games back-to-back. But getting back to what was his last game, this Maple Leafs game, after the Flyers won a face-off in their own zone here, York would give it up, which that directly led to the Leafs tying the game. And as a result, York, who routinely logs at least 20 minutes a night, was also benched.
Be embarrassed, I guess, if you will. It's a real kind of stunner for me.
So it seems this latest benching, along with those interesting comments post-game, in a game where they were blown out, was all seemingly the final straw. But in my opinion, Tort's making a habit of benching guys, publicly shaming them, at some point, it's not going to play well with the room if the results are not there. And who knows what the dynamic was like towards the end here, but I think his old-school style has proven to, at best, work only temporarily. His expiration always seems to come sooner than later, which, I mean, I personally love Torts. His pressers are comedic gold, and I also love his no-crap attitude. But yeah, either way, he is out of a job for the moment. Brad Shaw will take over in the interim. Not a lot of games left to prove himself here, but we'll see how that goes. But let me know your thoughts on this below, and let me know, do you think Torts lands another job next season? As always, thank you for watching. I appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one.
Oh, sorry. Ooh, Crosby McBee. We're almost done. Finally, we are almost done. Woo!
And this season, not once did he dip below averaging a point per game or more for 19 straight years. That meant he joined Wayne Gretzky at the top as the only 2 players to ever achieve this. But this season, despite the Penguins again having a joke of a year, set to miss the playoffs for the 3rd straight year, at the age of 37, 87 continues to be one of the few bright spots on this team. Somehow, he hasn't slowed down a bit. Coming into tonight's matchup against Buffalo, a team he had 85 points on in 61 games throughout his career, also riding an 8-game scoring streak with 13 points in the last 8 games, he found himself at 79 points through 71 games played. Having missed 2 games due to injury this season, he was just 1 point shy of recording his 20th straight point per game season. So let's get into it. And don't you blink or you might just miss it, as just 27 seconds in, surprise, surprise, Tristan Jarry lets in the first shot of the game on Tage Thompson with his 36th of the season. As Buffalo came out hot and dangerous, and before Pittsburgh could even register a shot, the Sabres registered their 2nd goal. Peyton Krebs for his 7th, as boy, did they have Pittsburgh on their heels. But after killing a Sid slashing penalty where they gave up no shots on that penalty kill, it appeared to maybe give him some life, and just 2 minutes later, Raquel to the front finds Crosby, and he finds his 80th point. Skate to stick, top cheese, and there it is. Becoming officially the first player in NHL history to score 20 straight point per game seasons. He surpasses Gretzky's 19-year run from 1979 to 1998, and what an accomplishment it is. The other thing is, while Gretzky played the bulk of his days in one of the highest scoring eras in NHL history, Crosby spent a good chunk of his in one of the lowest scoring eras. Since the start of Crosby's career, only 23 other players with at least 100 games played have averaged more than a point per game. Throughout Gretzky's career, there were 51. This is an incredible record, requiring an amazing level of longevity and consistency, as it really feels like Crosby's prime has been his entire career. But I'm rambling, so begrudgingly, let's get back to this game, because while Jarry had a good stop here and a little luck to keep it a 1-goal game through 20, the second was brutal. Byram in for Kulik, and he'd score. Goes upstairs on Jarry to regain the 2-goal lead. As these Penguins, man, they are so bad, immediately would give up another odd man rush before the Sabres with another
I
goal.
know,
Samuelson from
Penguins
Rosen beats Jarry short side. It's not a pretty one, and that was his night. 4 goals on 12 shots. The second game in a row he gets pulled before Lizotte getting Dahlin up high then meant the Sabres got a power play. And it was a solid power play, peppering Ned another one off the pipe here, and just as time was set to expire, they'd score again. Kulik with an absolute missile rips it glove side, and it was 5-1. But look out, there's plenty more where that came from, as Kozak on cleanup duty would net his 3rd, and it was 6-1. Reimer was also great when he had to beat. Solid game from him. These 2 late in the second were really pretty. Lizotte out of mid-air here was shut down, but with no mercy at all, the Sabres would make it a touchdown with yet another tuck down Main Street, as he would net his 28th to make it 5 straight goals in the middle frame. This team sucking ass while Sid is out here making NHL history. Actually,
Sucking what?
These last few seasons. I truly don't know how he's done it on this team, but he's tied for 1st in the league at 5-on-5 with 52 points.
It's gonna be
let's finish this
someday
thing off. The
used
Sabres just
as
couldn't
an
stop
out
scoring,
of
even if it was on
context
themselves, as to start the 3rd, Dahlin would kick one into his own
Watch
net,
it
and we'll call that
go.
8 goals for them. But towards the end of the period, Timmins in towards the net, and they'd score another. Nice play here from Timmins, as Hayes would finish it off, but the Penguins just got thumped tonight, and as time would expire, Buffalo would take it.
Eventually, I'm gonna be
Again, he is
doing
about the only
the
bright spot on this team,
Reddit
but it doesn't
series
undermine
once
how great of an accomplishment
some
this was. Anyway, that is
actual
about it for this one.
posts
Thank you guys
get
so much for watching. I appreciate
posted.
it as always, and I'll see you in the next one.
Guys, I put it in the description. What else do you need?
Looks like allergy season is back.
On October 14th, 2008, Canada went to the polls for a federal election. The Conservative Party under...
No. We're not doing that. We're not looking at the conservative wing of the Canadian elections, the Canadian political system. I think I'm starting to sound bad. What are you saying?
He's currently just 6 goals shy of doing just that, and of those 889 goals he has, 28 came against Marc-Andre Fleury. Now that's in large part due to how often they faced each other, as the longtime netminder of the Penguins was there for the height of the Capitals-Penguins rivalry, but also while he was in Chicago, while he was a Vegas Golden Knight, and now playing with the Minnesota Wild. With 28 goals against, Fleury finds himself at the top of the list of Ovi's most frequent victims. Having said that, while Ovechkin got one on him earlier this season. It was Fleury shutting him down in the shootout in that same game that actually sealed the victory. Fleury has, of course, received a lot of attention himself this season in what is his farewell tour around the league. He is hanging them up after this season, and so last night, as the Capitals paid visit to Minnesota, barring any crazy playoff events, we got what will very likely be the final time Ovechkin and Fleury faced each other. Now, while Fleury didn't get the start, Gustafsson, who, by the way, has been fantastic, he played well again, and we'll get to the game. But first, skipping straight to the end, we got a really nice moment at the end of this game where greatness recognized greatness. After time had expired, the Capitals players were well on their way down the tunnel before they were told they had to come back out by Ovi himself. Get back out here as he lined up his troops to give the flower a proper send-off. This was such a classy gesture by Ovi and the Capitals, and it just gets you in the feels. 20-year rivals. So many memories. I know for me, as a lifelong Penguins fan, that Penguins-Capitals rivalry was the peak of my hockey enjoyment as a fan. And here, with the entire Capitals team, including staff, coming out, greeting him and shaking his hands, it was just very cool to see. As this is really it. Man, am I going to miss the flower in the league. But anyway, as for the game itself, this was a massive victory for the Wild, because while the Wild opened the scoring 6 minutes in, John Merrill through traffic beating Lindgren for his second of the year, the Capitals finally got going and would answer immediately. Roy, with a rocket firing home his third, would tie it up. And shortly after, double dipping, not 2 minutes later, it was Duhaime scoring against his former team, his ninth of the year, to now take the lead. And so after what was overall a fairly even opening frame, we'll head to the second, where the Capitals nearly doubled up that lead, but rain went off the pipe, and so instead, with 8 to go in the second, Ferravari would get called for holding. A big chance to swim the actually, a shot was redirected by the but just as time was set to expire, Lee would score his 24th. This one is his 8th to the front of the Lindgren and regain the lead with just 8 seconds remaining. And you see it yourself, 27 goal lead after 2 on the Wild here. That record would remain with Leopold Gaudreau went right over Chikrin here to seal the deal. What an empty net goal this was, by the way. Wow. But yeah, that would about do it for this one. The Capitals rang a few off the pipe throughout this game, outshot the Wild, but just couldn't get it done.
Oh, it's finally over. Finally. We are finally almost over. We just need to do that, we just kind of need to do that.
Fresh off of the Four Nations face-off, we've had just 2
No, we're finishing this with the wheel. We're not going to. We're continuing this with the spin of the wheel. Now, finally, after so long. No, wrong thing. We get to spin the wheel. Ooh, a new one. Canucks. The Vancouver Canucks. Schedule.
The Canucks lost 7-6 yesterday against the Blue Jackets in a shootout.
Alrighty, everything after that Wednesday, April 2nd at 10:30 p.m. I think the Krakens are... Krakens are going to win. Ducks, Golden Knights, Canucks, Avalanche. That one was obvious. Wild. Actually, I'm gonna go on to the official because it's running out. Like, it ran out. Like, holy. Alrighty, here we go. Not for March, next month. Alrighty. That's actually all. Okay. So I think they're gonna be able to beat the Wild. I think they're gonna. Wait, when's the playoffs? When's the Stanley Cup playoffs begin? Oh, that makes more sense. Season ends on the 17th. Okay. We're that close already? So I guess this episode... so this episode's where I had to make the bingo card and, all that bullcrap. I'm not gonna make a follow-up video saying if the... Actually, I might with the, October... Oh no, I might not even make a bingo card, So, I guess we had to predict the playoffs. Stanley Cup playoffs. They don't have one, so... Bracket challenge. This could be wrong. I think this was last year's. Yeah, 24-25. This is the correct bracket, I believe. Let's see one thing. Alrighty, I think this is the actual playoff. The actual bracket. I think the Oilers are going to win, since they just came back from it. I think LA is going to win. I think Oilers are going to win already. I think the... Oh, here we go. Here's the tricky one. I think it's going to be very close, but I think the Kraken are going to win in 4. I think it's going to be... I think Canucks are going to win 3 games. The Kraken are going to win 4. I think it's... No, I think it's the Predators this time. I think the Predators are actually doing good for themselves. This is an old matchup, but we're going to come back to that. Alrighty. I think it's going to be Toronto. I think it's going to be Boston. I think Boston. I think it's going to be Toronto this time. I think Toronto could win. I think it's going to be the Rangers. I think it's going to be Florida, with, new players and, I think it's going to be the Rangers. The Rangers are a very strong team. Alrighty, we're going to make the final 2. Alrighty, Predators are really strong this season. But against the Oilers, I think they're going to lose. I think the Rangers will win. So I think it's going to be the Oilers versus the New York Rangers. Edmonton Oilers versus the New York Rangers. And ultimately, I think that the Oilers are going to want their comeback. So I think it's going to go to Game 7. And I think the Rangers are going to win. I gotta look at the bingo card maker. Bingo card maker. Alrighty, I'm gonna be emailing me this so I can X off certain ones. And we're kind of just gonna let it be. Let the bracket show its work. If any, I'm probably gonna, I don't know, maybe by the end of the playoffs, but also maybe by the end of, maybe when we end the series officially in October, we'll do something as alrighty, did I get I think there's less boxes than last year's. I'm not sure. Someone can check for me. So, I'm going to read them out. This will probably be helpful if you can't read or if you... Let's just leave it at that. A wild card team makes the Stanley Cup Finals. So, yeah, that's self-explanatory. A team who went into the Stanley Cup playoffs... Excuse me. A team who went into the Stanley Cup Finals goes into it again. The following text is very small. A team who was in the Stanley Cup Finals last time will not make it past the second round. I would be surprised if that was X, if we got that one correct. A Canadian team will win the Stanley Cup. So there's a 50-50 chance, but probably less than 50% since how many years it's been, 36, 37. An American team will win the Stanley Cup. Alrighty. And this one was just for fun. Donald Trump will attend one of the playoff games. I got removed from it. Hold on. You got to see the original version. You'll never see that one again. Of the playoff games. The Stanley Cup will go to a team that hasn't won it yet. A meme will be created during the Stanley Cup playoffs. So, the criteria basically means if it gets popular enough, it will be considered a meme. Which means it has to be shared on more than one social media, and multiple people have to be posting it. Alrighty? And finally, the final one, a team that everyone expects to win will lose. So basically, an expected team to win will lose. So, I forget what that's called, that's why I did it that way. So, yeah. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and leave a little comment down in the comment section, and I'll see you after the outro. And I'll see you in the next video! Boom, boom, boom!